Hi, I'm Doug Lumsden, and I own Monterey Movie Tours. And there's no better place in the world to have a movie tour than on the Monterey Peninsula. And this area has been the site, the home of movies for the last 100 years because of our tremendous scenic beauty. Certainly our proximity to Hollywood didn't hurt, just about 6 hours south of us. So they've been bringing film crews and Hollywood stars up here for the last 100 years and filming some of the wonderful scenes of their movies. And we do a tour every day that goes to some of these wonderful sites. I think one of the interesting things when films are made in your hometown is that they capture an era of your community. They really capture what was going on at that time, what was actually happening, what the industry was. Certainly they capture buildings in the backgrounds of their scenes. We have such wonderful examples of that on the Monterey Movie Tours. Marilyn Monroe made a movie in 1953, a movie called Clash by Night. And she was a Cannery Row worker, and it was filmed during the Cannery Row days, our era here, and certainly the #1 tourist attraction on the Monterey Peninsula today. And so when we're doing our tour, what's great about it is that through the eyes of Hollywood, we can actually show people today what such areas as Cannery Row used to look like. And so we cruise down Cannery Row, a very historic spot on the Monterey Peninsula in Monterey County overall, and we're able to bring that feeling back, the era of the sardine capital of the world days. And so we have a lot of fun doing that every day. So one of the beauties of having all these movies filmed. So I always encourage whenever there's a film crew thinking about maybe using some of our sites, it's always a very, very good thing. I'm a past director of the Monterey County Film Commission, and that's what we've been trying to do for the last several years, and hopefully we'll have some more major pictures filmed here in the years ahead. We've had nearly 200 movies filmed in the area, and on our tour every day, we go around some of these wonderful sites and show all these scenes. Other movies, of course, obviously we have an icon here in our area, Mr. Clint Eastwood, and his first movie that he ever directed was back in 1971, a movie called Play Misty for Me. And all of the scenes, every scene of that movie, including interior shots, were filmed on the Monterey Peninsula, and has really kind of become a cult classic today, which was filmed right down at a wonderful restaurant we have down in Cannery Row, the Sardine Factory, where they shot a lot of the scenes, and we play a wonderful scene where he starts to get the feel of what the female stalker in the movie, really what her problem was, Evelyn. Clint himself has said throughout the years that that was such an important movie for him to make. If he had failed on that movie as a director, he may never had tried to direct another movie, and we would have lost a lot of movies, that is for sure. We go on in our tour and we go through the coastline of the Monterey Peninsula. I think a lot of people are just unaware of the fact of how many movies have been filmed right out in Monterey Bay. And we've had such wonderful older movies as Captain's Courageous, many scenes from the movie Mutiny on the Bounty. And of course that was the original with Clark Gable and Charles Laughton. And our bay is so huge, they were able to bring their tall ships into Monterey Bay and actually put up the sails right in the middle of the bay, angle the camera in a direction that you don't see land, and start filming. Then at night, they just had to bring the boats, put them right in the pier there, right at the wharf, and very convenient to film a movie. So even our waters right around Monterey Bay have been used many, many times for movies in the past. All of our communities have really been used. In fact, Monterey County overall, not just the Monterey Peninsula, but some of John Steinbeck's wonderful novels of Mice and Men. East of Eden, of course, starring legendary James Dean, filmed right in the Salinas Valley in the lettuce fields, partially filmed there. And we show some of the wonderful scenes of, certainly of East of Eden, only 3 movies Mr. James Dean made, and that's one of the 3, and they filmed all over here. We have such a broad base of scenes that can be shot here. When the tour gets into Pebble Beach, we have several scenes there that are a lot of fun to play. Of course, Marlon Brando was here and made a movie called One-Eyed Jacks, and there's a home right by Spanish Bay there, just as you enter Pebble Beach from the Pacific Grove Gate, and we slow down and we show us a couple of scenes of that wonderful movie. That was one of the rare times that Monterey was actually Monterey in a movie, which is kind of interesting. Actually, Marlon Brando was part of a gang of bank robbers coming to Monterey to rob a bank. One of the huge movies filmed on the Monterey Peninsula that we talk about quite a bit was filmed in the late 1950s. And of course, it starred a couple of heartthrobs, Sandra Dee and Troy Donahue. And of course, one of the great theme songs of all time, still you hear every day, certainly it's played every day somewhere in the world, multiple times I'm sure, the movie A Summer Place. That wonderful movie that really takes you back in time. It was very risque for its day. It dealt with infidelity and divorce. And back then, you really didn't talk about that much. Today, when you show scenes, it looks like it's a Walt Disney production or something. But it shows you how much our culture has changed through the eyes of Hollywood. And we can show scenes in Pacific Grove. The Summer Place itself was right in the town of Pacific Grove. And I think a lot of locals today have no idea what a huge site that is for a movie having been filmed on the Monterey Peninsula. Throughout the years, some of these sites are forgotten. And we try to bring these back to life on our tour each and every day. We go then into Pebble Beach and show some other scenes where Sandra and Troy are walking along the beach right at Spanish Bay there. And then we also show a scene of them on the pier right at the beach club. And it's the same pier there. They've actually filmed the opening and closing scenes to the movie A Summer Place right on the pier, right next to the beach club inside Pebble Beach. And that's a very fun scene to play. And what's wonderful is that we have these sites on the Monterey Peninsula where they filmed, and they look exactly the same, today. And that's what we always try to find. We try to find a setting on our tour that that people can readily see. So they're looking at the site, and then we actually bring that site back to life the way it looked when they filmed there. So that's the fun of it. One of the real historical sites, since we're talking about A Summer Place right now, is downtown Monterey, Colton Hall, where California's Constitution was written in 1849. And Hollywood loves this building. It's been in many scenes and movies throughout the years, including a scene in the movie A Summer Place. It was Briarwood School for Girls, a girls' school that they sent Sandra Dee to get away from Troy. That was supposed to be back in Boston. No, it was right here on the Monterey Peninsula. So we have a lot of fun with that. It's a wonderful movie to have been filmed in our area. A newer movie that was filmed in Pacific Grove, Turner and Hooch. And of course, that's with Tom Hanks, really a wonderful little movie, a very good family film. Not the entire movie was filmed here, but a whole bunch of the movie was. I remember watching some of the scenes when they filmed downtown Pacific Grove right on Lighthouse Avenue. And it was fun just taking a look at Hooch himself. There was actually 3 Hooches on the site. They had to kind of transform their community into another one for the movie. And I know a lot of the locals were extras in it. So we certainly play 2 or 3 scenes of Turner and Hooch throughout Monterey movie tours each and every day. When we leave Bird Rock, a movie called Julie with Doris Day and her crazed, jealous husband, Louis Jourdan. And we show a scene as they're driving their car wildly right around Cypress Point. Wonderful movie. It's seen quite a bit today on TV. It seems like they still play that all the time. She has a husband that's trying to kill her throughout the entire movie. So we show scenes of Doris Day and her husband in the car. They're going around Cypress Point. And we also show a scene of her when we're making our last final stop of the tour at the lodge at Pebble Beach. And as we're heading to the lodge, there's a wonderful scene of Doris being chased by her husband. It's right at the beginning of the movie. It's during the opening credits. And she's being chased on the path right next to the greatest finishing hole in golf in the world, the 18th on the Pebble Beach Golf Links. She runs up the back deck of the lodge just the way it is today. Nothing has really changed. She goes right through the lodge, and we try to time it so as we're kind of cruising with the bus, our movie tour bus, and we just slow down, and there's the entry, the main entry to the lodge, and they see her coming right out. And every once in a while, they'll open the door and a gal with blonde hair will come out. Perfect timing. It's happened a couple of times. That's another great scene that shows some of of course, one of the greatest resorts in the world. The Lodge at Pebble Beach, the Pebble Beach Golf Links, the 5 U.S. Opens, the annual site of the AT&T Pebble Beach National Pro-Am, previously the Bing Crosby Pro-Am in earlier days. Our second stop is the lone cypress tree. And of course, people have said that it is the most photographed tree in the world. Some wonderful scenes of movies have been filmed right there, using the tree as the backdrop. One of them is Lana Turner and the great singer Ezio Pinza in a movie called Mr. Imperium. And they're in a donkey cart right where the bus is parked. And they just are pulled right along the bus as we're parked. They're right along the side of us almost. You see the lone cypress tree right in the back. And in the movie, this is supposed to be the beautiful shores of Corsica. We can stand in for just about anything in the world. Another movie is Robert Young in a movie called The Second Woman, a suspense drama. And there's a wonderful scene where he's interviewing a gal who's painting the tree right there. And it was filmed in 1951, and you get to see the tree, what it looked like back in those days. So certainly much fuller than what it is today. It's been pared down a little bit. I think it still is a beautiful setting, but it is about 260 years old, and probably that tree is only going to last for another 40 years. There's about a 300-year average lifespan for a Monterey cypress. So it is the living logo for the Pebble Beach Company, so we're going to have to see what's going to happen. They have that tree and everything that they sell, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Another wonderful sight as we leave the lone cypress tree is we go around the Crocker-Irwin Mansion. And it is a wonderful mansion, originally built in 1928 at the cost of $2 million, just before the crash in 1929. That was a lot of money back then. It was built in the shape of a Byzantine castle. Really has not been lived in all that much during its lifetime. Hollywood loves its look. It's been in many movies throughout the years. Once again, Mr. Imperium, they used that home, My Favorite Brunette with Bob Hope. It was used extensively in that movie, and Walt Disney's Escape to Witch Mountain. We play a couple of scenes when we're kind of cruising around the Crocker-Irwin Mansion. When we leave Pebble Beach, National Velvet, Elizabeth Taylor, the movie that really catapulted her into stardom, and of course that was with Mickey Rooney also. There's a wonderful scene of them walking down what is today a golf cart path between holes number 14 and number 6. It looks exactly the same today. They made it look like a little English trail in the movie, hedges kind of planted along either side there. But you can easily see it because they show the topography of the land right across. You can start to see Point Lobos right across exactly where they're walking. And we can play those scenes back to back. We can show a scene as we're just traveling by 15th fairway of the Pebble Beach Golf Links, just before we get to the site where those scenes were filmed. We start playing the scene from National Velvet, and then we play the scene from The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. And that was also filmed on the same path, going in the same direction, the 14th fairway one side and the 6th fairway on the other. We travel a little bit further on, and we're showing Elizabeth Taylor at a very young age, who was an excellent horse lady. She was terrific. She takes a couple of steeplechase jumps right at the end of the scene that we show. And it's so great because the shot was facing south. She takes a couple of these jumps, and interestingly, she turns her head to the left after the first jump. I would think probably the director asked her to do that because on a big screen you could easily see that was in fact Elizabeth Taylor doing all that riding. And that's probably what they wanted you to see on that. But it's great. Right at the end of the scene, you see Carmel Beach, the crescent shape of Carmel Beach, very, very easily right there, which was supposed to be Sewell's England in the movie. And we always stand in for another place in the world. Now, when we head through Carmel, we show a scene with a little bit newer movie, Chevy Chase. The movie seems like old times. And in the movie, Chevy is a rider living down in Big Sur. He's kidnapped by a couple of thugs who bring him into Carmel, and they force him to rob a bank on Ocean Avenue. And so we play a wonderful scene where, a very funny scene where it's the scene where they're talking about the parking problem in Carmel as they're trying to find a parking space so they can rob the bank. One of the great things about doing the movie tour with locals on board, and we've had a lot of locals, thousands come on, even though they've lived for 40 years, they kind of want to see their community through another pair of eyes. And a couple of months ago, we had a lady and her mother come on board. We played that scene, and at the end of the scene, They park their car right by Harrison Memorial Library, downtown Carmel. They walk across the street to where a bank was at one time when they filmed in 1982. The bank is long gone today. But after we played the scene, and the scene stops there when they're just walking across the street to the bank, and a lady raised her hand on the bus. She said, "Would you like to know more about that scene?" And we said, "Sure." She said, "Well, I happened to be the branch manager of the bank when they filmed there." And she told everyone the story that when the studio called her to ask if they could film, she had to check with her corporate staff. She said yes. And when she got back to the studio, she said yes, that would be fine, but she threw in one more request. She said, "In order for this to happen, Chevy Chase has to have dinner with me." So we all asked immediately, "Well, did that happen?" She said, "Absolutely." They got through filming at 8:30 on a Sunday night, and she went out for an hour and a half downtown Carmel with Chevy and one of the producers. So I always tell everyone on the bus, if anyone asks you to use something that you've got for a movie, you throw in all those things that you need that has to happen for that to take place. I thought that was a great story, but that's the fun of having locals on board. They can actually give you a lot of wonderful stories and tell you actually a lot about other filming sites that have been around that maybe we're not aware of. And right after that, we play a very short scene of the movie California. And there's a wonderful, just a very short little clip of the entire front of the Carmel Mission of the Basilica and the beautiful window above the archway entry, the only window like it in all the 21 missions in the shape of the Star of Bethlehem. And so it's just perfect timing as we show those scenes. We slowly pass by the Carmel Mission, one of the most beautiful of all the missions, all the 21 missions built up and down the coast of California. And then we just slow and they get to see the archway entry, and there's the window that was just in the scene that we showed. As we head back to Monterey, we really have a lot of fun, and there's a myriad of scenes that we can show. So we kind of have to decide a little bit ahead of time what we're going to do here. We have one of the most iconic scenes in motion picture history, and that's the one that I really like to play, the beach scene from the movie From Here to Eternity. And there's a wonderful story about them having shot the entire movie over on Oahu in Hawaii, and then when cast and crew came back to Hollywood, the director Fred Zinnemann decided that he didn't like the lighting for the beach scene that was filmed over there, and so they just drove up the Northern California coastline like they'd done so many times in years gone by, and try to find a setting that looked like a Hawaii beach, and they reshot the scene. The interesting part of it is that it was a whole different scene anyway. When they filmed it over in Hawaii, they were really standing up in the surf. They were not laying down. And the story is that it was Bert Lancaster, the second time they filmed it here, who said, "Why don't we lay down in the surf? I think it'd be much more effective." And there was one problem with that. The one problem is our water is a little chilly over here, much colder than water over in Hawaii. And so they had to take some time and figure out what they were going to do, and they decided, look, if you can just let the water lap over you one time, why don't we just put a blanket on the beach, we'll run you out of that freezing water, and that's how we'll finish the scene. So maybe our cold water made one of the greatest scenes in motion picture history. Who the heck knows? Interestingly, years later, both Deborah Kerr and Bert Lancaster, both of them admitted to have had an affair on the set during the filming of the movie, and maybe it was just that chemistry that was also caught on film. We also show scenes of movies. We have really a group of films that we've put together, kind of a montage. We don't always get to play it because it's a little bit lengthy, of movies filmed down in the Big Sur area. A lot of wonderful, many silent movies were filmed in Monterey County, certainly on the Monterey Peninsula, south of Carmel. Point Lobos was huge. They built sets there and filmed many scenes of movies such as Evangeline. So there's just a wealth of silent movies that were filmed here. I mean, they were up here twice a year at certain times back in the 1920s. The first $1 million movie ever made, a movie called Foolish Wives, Erich von Stroheim. He directed and he actually wrote it. And he was a very famous actor back in those days. And Foolish Wives was, by the studio, touted it. The studio really put the movie out, the silent movie, as the first $1 million movie ever made right here on the Monterey Peninsula. We show a wonderful scene. In fact, we do have the scene on board of a wonderful scene of a gal running out to the lone cypress tree in the movie Foolish Wives. And they actually filmed it from the side, one of the only scenes that I've ever seen filmed from the side of the lone cypress. Very interesting scene, all shot in black and white, obviously. Very nicely done, really, for back in its time. It just goes on and on. We expect filming will continue here. In fact, it's been fun because a new movie has been filmed just recently, a movie called Carmel by the Sea. And that was just premiered about a week ago, and they're going to have another premiere coming up in just about a week here. So we're happy that filming continues, and we hope to get more and more in the days ahead, that's for sure. Some of the other settings we've had movies filmed, wonderful, our raceway here, Laguna Seca Raceway's been in several scenes of movies. I'm sure a lot of people would remember The Love Bug. And absolutely, that crazy Volkswagen. Wonderful scenes were filmed out at the Laguna Seca Raceway, what was then called the Laguna Seca. It's called Mazda Raceway, Laguna Seca now, I believe. Also, our airports. The Monterey Airport and the Salinas Airport has been used. There's a wonderful scene. In fact, we have kind of a montage of comings and goings at the Monterey Peninsula Airport. We also have a wonderful scene of a movie called The Parent Trap with Haley Mills, who comes off a plane at the Monterey Peninsula Airport, and she meets her father, Brian Keith, played by Brian Keith. There's also a wonderful scene of that movie that we show. As you go around Cypress Point, inside Pebble Beach, there's a wonderful scene of them driving, and they had a back screen showing the scene of the landscape in the back, which Hollywood did. And they still do it every once in a while now, but that was predominantly done back in the early days of filming, back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. They filmed a 30-second stretch of the roadway. And if you watch closely, the scene is about a minute and a half. And you see the same roadway that's going around and around. They just looped it. It's called looping. And they just looped it. And you're, of course, watching the actors act. But if you look at the background, they're just going around the same loop over and over. So it's been fun today talking a little bit about what Monterey Movie Tours is all about, and the wonderful presence that we have in films down in Hollywood because of our tremendous scenic setting here in our area, not just Monterey Peninsula, but Monterey County overall. So we're hopeful there's going to be a lot more filming coming up in the days ahead.